On today's show, I'll be sharing my thoughts on the first two episodes of Rings of Power, discuss the Minstrel Update 33.2, as well as review my research on determining whether LOTRO is a dying game. Watching the Rings of Power last Friday night with my friends was just an absolute blast. We had a watch party and everybody gathered around and we just commented on absolutely everything that was happening. But before I go into too much detail of that, I first want to say thank you to everyone that has been part of this community and that are making my time creating all of this content so much enjoyable. If you want to be part of that community, then head on over to patreon.com/Miloascape for more details on how to become a patron. This past week, I released a video on whether or not tasks are worth it, and one of my viewers said, "For me, inside Miloachat in the Pit of Stonejaws is a really great place. Think around 150 hobgoblins in a small spot and quick respawn time, and did not know if you mentioned it, but the lower task items for a Captoon also advances the reward track." This was from Hein de Vries. Yeah, Hein, I mean, somebody told me, yeah, you could advance the reward track with tasks from the beginning. I did not know that. I learned that this week. So thank you everybody in the community for making me aware of that. Please drop your comments below and let me know your thoughts on the show. I thoroughly had a blast at the watch party for Rings of Power. We just went to town and just commented on every little detail that we saw. It was so much fun. I had to go back though a second time and rewatch them because I felt like there was so much in there that I just missed the first time around. And last night we actually watched it again for a third time and I picked up even more. There's so much little nuances from Middle-earth lore that they've worked into the show. It's just remarkable. Today I'm going to share with you my thoughts on this. I'm going to share with you the three things that I really liked about it and the three things that was just confusing or that just didn't make sense to me. So let's dive right in. First, what I liked. The first thing I liked was the CGI. The computer graphic images of the landscape that they created was absolutely breathtaking. I especially loved the view of the Elven City, and then the Moria shots were just it was like Moria just came to life on the screen as how it was way back in the Second Age. The other image that really stuck out in my mind is the one of the tower where you're getting a whole view of Middle-earth from a bird's eye view. This image is iconic to me and is exactly what I think of when I think about visiting Middle-earth, is that shot. The other cool one was the one with the two trees burning. The one tree, the gold tree, is Laurelin, and the silver tree was Telperion. In the First Age, they blow up, and that's what causes the elves to go to Middle-earth. And I'm glad they included that because it's a little bit of backstory as to why the elves came to Middle-earth to help set the stage. Second, my favorite character by a long shot was Nori, Eleanor Brandyfoot. The moment I saw her, I just knew she would go adventuring. She is played by Markella Kavanagh, and she exemplifies everything for me that a hobbit is and going adventuring. I'm really glad they cast a female in that role because I have always wanted to see a female hobbit go adventuring. Yes, I like Frodo and Sam and Pippin and Merry, but I always felt like, wow, I wonder how that experience would have been if it was a female hobbit and what female hobbits are really capable of. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how her story unfolds. The third thing I really liked about this is that by the end of the second episode, they had a really clear storyline of how all the different races was going to play in this. So they had introduced the men, the dwarves, the elves, the hobbits, and yes, the sorcerers, and how all of them was going to play pivotal roles in making this story really amazing. Okay, so now the things that I found puzzling. First, Galadriel swimming back from Valinor to Middle-earth. Come on, that for me was just sloppy. really, I just don't think it's feasible or possible to even be in existence. And then for her to be chased by a sea monster while she's adrift on a boat that she just magically finds in the middle of the ocean, it was just didn't add to the story arc. It just felt like it kept Galadriel busy while everything else was being unfolded in Middle Earth. I think that her going on the boat to Valinor and then at the last possible second giving up, it was just too much. I just don't think that's realistic to the character or true to the character. Second is you never see any of the characters actually traveling through Middle Earth. Elrond is in the Elven City 1 second, and then the very next scene he's at the door to Moria. I'm like, well, has days gone by? Has months gone by? Oh, and then by the way, they swap back to showing Galadriel still floating or swimming through the ocean. I'm like, so has she been swimming for a month? The timeline was very confusing and it just did not fit well, and I think people got lost with the timeline. Third, I watched this with my family, and many of them aren't hardcore Lord of the Rings or Middle Earth, fans. So they did not pick up on nearly half of the subcontext that I did. And so it was very confusing for them the first two episodes because it kept jumping all over the place, as opposed to like Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, where you kind of stick with the character and you follow that main character's journey throughout the entire story. This one was just way more jumbled. My family was asking me questions about, okay, so why this, why this, why this? And it was just very confusing to them. So I think that this is really a shame, because that just means that my family is more than likely not going to want to watch this with me versus, my friends that are really into Middle Earth and has read the Silmarillion and can answer all the questions that I have because I've read it once 20 years ago. Will be a much more in-depth discussion about things. But yeah, it's going to be hard for folks that are just coming to the story and don't have any other context to go around. And maybe it'll get better in the next couple of episodes as things start to come more and more together. But this first two, I think, was a real high barrier for folks that are unfamiliar with the content to really get into it. Alright, so that's my summary for my review of Rings of Power. Next, the biggest news that's been going on in LOTRO this week is Update 33.2. We don't have a release date for that yet, although they did promise sometime soon. Who knows when that'll be. But the biggest change that they're going to be doing is focusing on the Minstrel. So the changes to the Minstrel is pretty much set. Right now I'm going to head on over to the computer and I'm going to walk you through the exact changes, comparing side by side what is new and what is existing. And I think you will find that overall the functionality hasn't really changed, it's actually improved. Let's start with the blue line. Comparing on the left-hand side what is currently available on Bullroar for update 33.2, and on the right-hand side what is currently live in LOTRO. A lot of the blue line has stayed exactly the same. A couple of things have been moved around, which I will point out, and then there's one or two items that are new and one or two items that got shuffled. So we're just going to take each of our existing and compare it against our new. Poignant phrases and strong appeal and follow up, they all stay the same, as well as soothing voice and pause for breath, those stay the same. The first change that we see here will be Raise Your Spirits. Now, Raise Your Spirits used to be over in the yellow line, and you could tier that up to plus 20%, raise our spirits, healing over time. Now, over in the blue line, they've actually increased that to where it can go up to 30% AoE heal strength, which is really, really nice. Then next you have here improved bolster courage. this is simply an icon change. You already had that in Blue Line. They just swapped out the icon to make it look like what the skill actually looks like. Then Resonant Piercing Cry stays the same. Improved Chord of Salvation stays the same. Improved Song of Hammer stays the same. And then you come down here to Quick Melody. Quick Melody we already had in Blue Line. It was just higher up. Now they've moved it a little bit deeper into the trade line. Your Coda of Resonance will stay, the Inner Strength, as well as Legend of Helm Hammerhand, all of those stay the same. The two changes that we see here is, first, we have this new skill that will be called Anthem of Compassion, and it can reduce incoming damage by 3%. And you can see here it effects applied to Fellowship within 30 meters, minus 1% incoming damage, plus 3% light and frost mitigation. So that is the new skill. We haven't had that one. And then this one, Inspiring Finish, is just moved from another spot. We had that higher up in our old tier, and it has been moved down. Now, so the only two new skills that we've got to contend with in the Blue Line is Raise Your Spirit, which would make sense that they moved it to the Blue Line, honestly, and then this Anthem of Compassion. What has been removed? So we've lost the Triumphant Spirit cooldown for 75 seconds. The Triumphant Spirit is not going to be longer, but they moved that skill into the panel on the left to just give you Triumphant Spirit once you've unlocked deep into the Blue Line. And then the other thing that we lost was this skill here called Inspiring Cries and Calls, which allowed you to reduce the cooldown of Cry of Chorus and Call cooldown. Now you won't have that any longer, which is going to affect gameplay for people that have always relied on that. The other thing was that this Resolute up here, which gave you block rating, has been completely removed, and it's which is actually good in my opinion, because block rating did very little, had very little incentive for a healer. Instead, what they've done in that place, they've just added Triumphant Spirit. Everything else here on this panel stays the same for the Blue Line. Changes to the Red Line have been extremely minimal. In fact, the only thing that changed was that Cry of the Valar swapped positions with Fierce Cries. And Fierce Cries is now a plus 20% cry and call critical multiplier, where it used to be only 15% critical damage. So it's definitely improved this, and it's just been swapped. Your Cry of the Valar still can be found if you trade deeply into Red Line. The Yellow trade line has seen the most rework compared to any of the other lines. All of these skills that are over here, many of them have moved into this, combining differently in different ways, and some of these skills have also been rearranged. All of the points spent on the yellow line now is 1 point individually, unless it's for a new skill, in which case it will cost more. So what we're going to do real quick is we're just going to run through each of these, compare and contrast, and just see kind of what's going on. The first one here is Improved Strikes, and you can see there is now a rank 5. It used to only go up to rank 3, and now it will increase by 50% strike healing. So it becomes even more important to use Herald Strike if you're going to trade that skill. Weakening Echoes of Battle have been changed to Memories of Battle. It now goes up to rank 5, which means you can go up to 50% Echoes of Battle resistance. And there's a new one here, plus 5% Melody of Battle threat chance. So this means that the Minstrel can be even a little bit more tankier and generating more threats, which is super cool. Next one we have here is improved Spire Fellows, and if we compare it to the previous one, you can see that the only thing that's been changed is the fact that the negative 3% incoming damage has been removed. But then if you go back over to the blue line, that they have moved that now into Anthem of Compassion and made it a thing of its own in the blue line. So you still have access to it, just in a different way. Next, we'll have Anthem of Composure, and that one has stayed the same, no changes there. Next is Change of Pace, no change there. And then we have Of All Trades. Of All Trades have slightly changed. There is a rank increase to rank 5. You can now see all tactical damage and everything will go up to 15%, and it now has the outgoing healing modifier has reduced slightly from 12% down to 10%. Next is Gripped by Fear, that has not changed. Then we have Thunderous Codas. Thunderous Codas is completely new to my knowledge, and if you look, it's gonna have affect which coda you're running depending on which stance you are, and it'll affect. Next is Tactical Mastery, that has not changed. Then we have Anthem of Prowess, which I wasn't able to find that on the old, but I do know that it is a skill that you get as a secondary skill in here somewhere. Then we've got Song of Restoration, and song that has not changed. It's just been moved from this bar into the side. You've got next is Word Spread, no changes there. Then you've got Invigorating Anthems. Now, Invigorating Anthems, if you look at the icon on the old, it used to be Shield Focus. Shield Focus is no longer a thing. It's been completely removed. So they changed it to Invigorating Anthems, which gives you a -5 Anthem cooldown if you are rank 5. Next you have Extended Anthems. It increases your Anthem duration by 25 seconds. In the old build, it used to be 50 seconds. So they've cut that in half. Next is Songs of Woe. If you look at the icon, it used to be Sharing a Story. It has actually changed to this one over here. So you still have Sharing a Story, they just simply changed the icon. So if you look at Songs of Woe, which is new, this is now a +5% critical chance of ballots, and this will obviously be used when you are running DPS mode. Probably it might affect your healing if you're using ballots for heals. Then you've got Perfect Performance. It's pretty much the same, except you have a +10 seconds performance duration. Next is Song of Aid. They simply changed the icon for it. It still does the exact same thing. Then next you have Anthem of the Free Peoples. This is new because it affects all your anthems, and the higher you rank, the more incoming healing and damage you'll be able to do and have. And you've got Strike a Chord, which is the same. The next one is Tale of Tales. The only difference here is that it is a new new icon that they're using. Also, they did a much better description of how Tale of Tales actually affects and works, and that it grants greater bonuses each time it tiers up, and you can tier it up by using your anthems. So using anthem skill will now also tier up Tale of Tales, which that's a new mechanic. So you want to be spamming your your anthems now in order to build that up. And then the next one is Call to Greatness. They did a big rework in what is affected in Call to Greatness. The only thing that Call of Greatness now really does is that it resets the cooldown of key skills for each of the classes as opposed to adding additional bonuses. So, for example, for the new one, the hunters will have reset the cooldowns for Rapid Fire, Burn, Hot, and the one trap, versus where it used to be that hunters would have plus 10% damage, plus 3 focus for when you hit Call to Greatness. Also, Call to Greatness now, I haven't tested it, but I would be interested to see how it's probably an instantaneous effect now as opposed to being applied over a duration of time. So this past week I got to tank Hidden Horde Tier 3 Boss 2 for the second time. The first time I tried, it was just an epic fail. I gave up after 3 attempts. I was like, nope, I need to go back to the drawing board and relearn some things. But this next time, the second time was a lot better. We consistently got to phase 4. And then afterwards, I spent about an hour with some of my friends just watching my footage and going over, okay, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? What do I need to adjust? And so we're going to watch some of that footage now. I'm going to show you my most successful pull and walk you through some of the things that, if you're a guard and you're going to be guarding that, would be very useful for you to know. So this was our second attempt at Hidden Horde Tier 3 Boss 2 that night. We got to phase 4, but so today I just wanted to go over with you and show you kind of the mistakes that I made and what I learned from doing it the second time. So boss started instantly. I grabbed the aggro and I pulled him over here. And what I'm going to do now is just make sure that I keep his aggro as much as possible. You can see Othus went up there and everybody is wailing away at the boss. So what happened here is that Czar, our hunter, pulled aggro from the boss and then he died, and then it instantly went to Fij, who was the next hunter, before I was able to get it back. The reason for that happening was that I hadn't established enough aggro. I needed to use Frey and engage many more times up initially so that I was able to establish that aggro. If we go back, you can see here the captain is now going to be taking aggro on the boss. You can see Nyrian has it, and I am going to run and I'm going to get into position so that when the ads spawn here, I am ready to grab them. Now, afterwards I learned the proper rotation, and what you want to do here is you want to as soon as the countdown starts, see, there the countdown has starts. As soon as this starts, you want to hit your speed boost. Then, as soon as the ads pop, you want to use War Chant, then Thrill of Danger, and then you want to boogie over to the other side, use Challenge, and then the mistake that I made was to run to this corner. The reason why this is a problem is because you can see I'm dragging the Guardian over here, and the Guardian is too close to the black arrows, so it's going to take them longer to die. What I should have done is go to those central steps, which you will see me moving to here in a second, because the hunter called and said that the Guardians were too close to the black arrows. So here I am trying to survive and heading to those steps. And the problem is I should have headed to those steps right away as opposed to it. Now the other thing that I learned here, I did grab the boss. The other thing that I learned was that I need to spam challenge as much as possible to make sure that I keep sufficient aggro. And the captain is going to be aware of that, and they're going to just literally watch the boss to make sure that they have their single taunt available for whenever they need to pull him back. The reason I don't want to use War Chant is because I do not want to be able to break the mezzes of the black arrows. Once the mezzes are done, then I can War Chant to my heart's content. So there I'm standing in a puddle, I'm moving out of the puddle. I'm getting pretty much beaten up by everything, but my morale is stable. I had a good RK that was healing me that night. And I'm just making sure that I constantly move and stay out of puddles to the best of my ability. Problem I'm getting into here again is by this point they're killing the BAs on this right hand side, but you will notice that there aren't any guardians in here anymore. That's because the Cappy took care of pulling the guardians away, freeing me up to just focus on everything else. Now that the black arrows are down, they'll start working on the sappers and everything else. Okay, here we're hiding and we're coming back out. You can see I had aggro, so I'm going to take at least one more hit. Oh, it dropped off. That's nice. But I'm taking one more hit just to give the Cappy a little bit of a breather. So the Cappy now has aggro and she will hold it to about 68%, at which point I will take it. And the reason we do this is so that when we drop down to 62%, the captain can take it back and then I can go. So right here the captain has it at 69%. We're dropping to 68. I am taking it, giving the Cappy time to lose the debuff. And then right about now is when the Cappy will be taking it back. And then I'm going to boogie to the north. And what I want to do is I want to stand on one side and watch for my timer to pop again. The timer pops, I need to use speed. I go ahead and use War Chant, go for that second worm, use challenge, run off to the corner. Now I am just holding the two worms. The Whelplings are going to do what the Whelplings want to do. Cappy has tiered up to 3, so shortly now I will be pulling the boss and bringing him over here. There comes the boss. And the main thing I want to focus on here is being sure that I'm removing all of the bleeds that the worms are putting up on me. And those bleeds can be super, super nasty. So right here I am in position and I am waiting for the ads to spawn. Here you can see the timer has come up. When this comes up, I need to use my speed boost, and then as soon as that hits, as soon as the ads spawn, I need to hit War Chant, Thrill of Danger, then boogie it over to the other side, hit my challenge, and then move to the stairs or the corner. Technically, I need to move to the stairs because here you can see I am in a red eye, which is reducing my tactical and physical mitigation by a certain percentage. So if I had been on the stairs, I wouldn't have been in the totem and I would have been fine. Now the difference between phase 1 and phase 3 is that during phase 3, somebody randomly in the group is going to get the eye. When they do, the warriors and the sappers will go chase after them. Then if that person dies or the eye falls off, then those warriors and sappers, like you can see charging in right now, will come straight back to me. What I needed to have done in this point, which I did not, was to make sure and check that everything else was on me. As you can see there in the distance, there's a sapper that I'm missing that I should have targeted and pulled towards me. And now that I've got everything on me, it is just I need to survive. but you can see here the captain is cheering up to 3. So technically what I do next was pull the boss, which I did. Got a hold of the boss, and now everything is on me, but now I have got the RK healing me because I'm holding the boss. Yeah, and that is what I learned. And then the Frost Scholar, because neither the Cappy nor I had aggro on the Frost Scholar, what happened was that the Frost Scholar started taking folks out left and right. And that just caused instability. And once you become unstable in this phase, it's kind of like a cascading effect of everything just running away. And that's how we failed. But through failing, we learn, and next time we'll do better. One of the things that keeps being mentioned is LOTRO dying. And so I wanted to go look at some historical data, see where we are with numbers in terms of actual players, active players daily, and compare that against some of the other games to see how we rank and whether or not we're actually losing or gaining players. So this is the result of that research. One of the questions I wanted to answer this week was, is LOTRO dying? And if so, what game do I want to play next? Then I found this really useful site called MMO-population.com, and when I looked at the LOTRO data, I found something interesting. So it says the daily players is around 26,000 folks, but the total amount of players playing LOTRO is 2.75 million. Now, looking at the daily charts here, you can see that there are some peaks that occur of around 50, but on average, there's about 26,000 folks that sign on. Now, if we look at the past year's data, you can see that there were some peaks that occurred mostly around midsummer festivals and other events, but for the most part it was pretty stable. We had a peak here because of the release of the new content. If we look at the 5-year breakdown, you can see when COVID hit, it shot up to 70,000, and then again that was when they went free to play. And then, there's been some other peaks that have occurred with time to time. But on average, we have been pretty stable. In the last 5 years, it's been very stable. And yes, we've had large fluctuations. But I think what lends itself to people thinking that the game is dying might be just because some of their friends have already finished the content and they're moving on to another game to go play that other game while they wait for the next big release of content to happen on Lord of the Rings. And I think that is very likely what is happening here. So, to figure out where some of these folks might be going, I did a further analysis to go and see which games have the most players in a 24-hour period. And when I looked, Lord of the Rings actually surprisingly fell 35 on the MMO chart, which I was pleasantly surprised. So it's round about, it's doing slightly worse than Neverwinter. Neverwinter was obviously released this year, so it peaked really high, but it's kind of declined rapidly because of just not having enough content to entice players to stay around. But then we go up into the hundreds of thousands, and you've got like Wizard 101, Destiny 2 is doing well, Eve is doing well, Maple Story, Roblox, but then we get into the top 10. Guild Wars is around about 300,000, and you can see they go up. And then really the frontliners is World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, Lost Ark. These 3 I kind of knew about, that they were very popular, but what really surprised me was Path Exile, that is pulling 1.8 million, and I think the reason mostly is because it is free to play and you don't have to pay for the subscription. That might be lending to it being so high. I've also heard that Path Exile has a really enticing storyline. I've never heard of Path Exile until this week, so it is definitely now on my list of games to go check out. All of these numbers were taken from MMO-population.com that run the statistics for the industry on a consistent basis. So, what game am I going to play next? I am probably going to stick with one of the ones that I have and just go from there. I am leaning towards Genshin Impact and doing this one next, and I will be hopefully creating a playthrough series of the storyline for you guys here in the next couple of weeks, so be on the lookout for that. This show is possible because of your support and encouragement. Become a patron and get access to more amazing content and see your name here in the credits. Thanks for watching.